Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Doing business and life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business in life to make an impact in the world. What impact will you make today? And I'm pumped to have my guest on. We had a meeting a few weeks ago and just really hit it off. And this is a true servant in a really difficult time or situation, suicide. Just going to put it out there. He's going to tell a little bit of his story and talk about it. But Mark, I want to welcome you to the show.
Steve, I'm honored to be here. Very excited.
Yeah, this is good. I'm going to delve right into this, to the darkness a little bit.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with the racism and bigotry throughout your life?
That's a great question. So I think it's changed. I grew up in San Francisco, and even then I went to a private elementary school. It's all boys, mostly very wealthy kids. This is back in the day in 1974. So we weren't as educated about different races and acceptance. And so I was the only Asian kid in the class, kindergarten. And these kids didn't know what to make of me. And I don't see that as them trying to hate me at the time. It was just being uneducated. And so I would be called names like flat nose Fujiwara, or the slanty eyes and things like that. And they talk like, oh, no, like Chinese. And so I actually, back then, it was like, it actually helped me because it angered me. And I could, it motivated me to excel at what I was strong in, which was running super fast, thanks to my dad, who always wanted to race me everywhere since I could walk, and also being really academically smart, especially in math. And so specifically on the athletic field, it just was like, okay, you can call me names, you can do whatever you want. But that just for me was something I utilized way back when, and kind of still do. And then when I got into my business, which is in private wealth, I had another round of racism, which was I hung out with a bunch of other advisors, and I would go golfing with these other advisors in the same company. And there was a couple guys in particular, one in particular, that would just, anytime I would talk, he would just, mock Chinese me. And, that was tough because I was the new kid in the firm and I couldn't say anything. And that really frustrated me. And I think when I had kids, so my oldest is 20 years old, that's when I said, I got to do something about this, because I'm the role model now. And I don't want them to like stand down any type of bigotry, of racism. So that's when it was almost like overnight, Steve, which I'm like, hey, you know what? That's not cool. That's not cool at all. And what you're doing is hurtful. It's like you're looking at me because I'm different. And that tells me a couple of things. One, you're ignorant, or, you're just a bigot. And, fast forward, had another set of circumstances when pandemic started, and the Chinese were blamed for the COVID-19 virus. And gosh, man, this was where it really hit home. My dad was off running in San Francisco. And this is when, you wore masks everywhere, even outside. And he's running and he sees another guy coming right down to him. And all of a sudden the guy takes his mask off, right? It's kind of weird. And then my dad puts his mask on, and the guy looks at my dad and he stares him in the eye, and he's coughing at him, kind of spit towards him. And that ain't no coincidence right there. Few weeks later, after that, I'm charging my car, and this guy comes around the corner as I'm throwing out the trash, and he threatens me. And he says, "Where's your effing mask?" And I said, "What?" Kind of took me by surprise. And then said, "It's people like you. It's people like you. I know what he's talking about, that should wear their mask." And so in that situation, I had to be smart, right? It's just like, you know what? We walk away from that. But where to fight, though, is not in those situations, because too much risk involved in that. But for me, Steve, it's standing up for Asians, standing up for people of color, because I feel like it's still a work in progress. And where I go back to is, I have 3 kids now. It's like, I want you to see what dad does to make sure that everybody is treated fairly, and not just because I'm a person of color, but because that's the way we do things in this family.
Very powerful. It's making me think of the news I was watching earlier with the APEC thing going on in San Francisco, and the 2 Chinese factions are fighting. I don't want to get into that, but it reminded me of that. But Mark, what did you learn as a kid going through all this? And I don't wish that upon anybody. I know you don't either. But did you learn something that now, as you became an advisor and see this, did it help you get through some of this?
Absolutely. And it was almost like, my dad is a big believer in this. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Right. And it toughens you up. It's like, hey, I want you to fall on the field. I want to scrape your knee. I'm not going to catch you, because that's where you toughen up. That's where you get better. And so this was a way for me to be, okay, they're not killing me. They're not punching me. They're trying to hurt me with their words. And it's like, all right. I looked at that as a way where, I'm one which loves to practice in horrible conditions. What do I mean by that? So when I'm doing, I'm an international speaker, and when I'm about to go on stage or getting ready for the talk, I will rehearse with the TV blaring, with music playing over there. I'll sometimes wake up first thing in the morning and go, okay, I'm going to rehearse right now. Or after a tough run where I'm just like spent, it's like, I'm going to go rehearse now. Same thing in my running, trying to get a New York City marathon. And it's like, I want to go in tough conditions. The other day it started raining, and I was like, I'm not going to wait till the rain stops. I'm going to try to do my run right now. So it taught me that in these kind of situations, it just toughens you up. Same kind of thing when I entered the workforce. Same kind of thing.
I like that. And I learned a phrase a couple of years ago dealing with some of my skeletons in the closet, you could say, is, what you think about me is none of my business. But you said it though, Mark. You got to have tough skin.
Yeah.
And that leads to, I mentioned suicide. And let's talk about that, your family member, and how that affected you.
Yeah. It's probably the most impactful, emotional day of my life. I was 21, and I was starting my senior year in college, and it was like really early in the morning, the type where you're like, oh, that phone call could mean 2 things: a fraternity brother that needs a ride home, or something really bad. And it was something really bad. And my mom and dad were on the call, and they said, we have just bad news. And I could tell that it was something happened big. And they told me that my cousin, was about 6 years younger than me, had killed himself, which was weird, because it's like, whoa, where'd that come from, right? And it was almost like, wait, what did you say? Now this cousin was not just any cousin to me. He was like a little brother to me. I was very tight with him and his sister, and it was like growing up, we went on vacations together, and I supported him quite a bit. And before I could start thinking about the thoughts of what could I've done to help him and things like that, my dad stopped me in my tracks. And this was just the most amazing thing a parent could ever do. And my dad said, hey, I want you to do 2 things. Okay, first of all, this is the most horrific instance you'll ever have to go through, maybe, right? And this is the worst day. This is horrific. And look, you can mourn for the rest of your life. That's fine. But the one thing I don't want you to do is to blame yourself for this. Because Mark, you walk into a room and you light it up and you lit your cousin Carson's life up in the best possible way. I don't ever want you to blame anything. And, you know, my dad's the type of guy that doesn't, I lead by his example. That's how he leads. He doesn't tell me what to do. So I know it was kind of uncomfortable for him to say, I need you to do two things. And the second thing, which is, I'll never, ever forget this, because at the time it didn't make a lot of sense to me. He says, the second thing I want you to do is, this is horrible, Mark. I know how sad, maybe mad you are right now. It's going to stay with you. But I want you to find something in this for the positive. For the positive. I want you to find something good that comes out. I want you to search. And it's not going to come right now, but might not come for years and years and years, or it might somewhat come and then something else comes. Honor your cousin's life. Honor Carson's life in some way, shape, or form. And yes, Steve, I didn't get it at the time. So it's almost like I kept trying to find it, and it was like, oh, maybe I'll make a career choice that's more conducive to Carson. That wasn't it. And it didn't happen till, gosh, a few years ago, actually, because I wasn't honoring his life, because when he died, Steve, and I started thinking about it, I'm like, I know why he killed himself, because I've had those thoughts before. And I get it in moments where I'm depressed, like for no good reason. And I kept it in me because of the stigma. And the Asian culture is one where we don't share our weaknesses, let alone mental health weaknesses. And so it was almost like, well, I was trying to convince myself that it was something else, maybe the food I ate or whatever the case may be, but I couldn't take it anymore. Mm-hmm. So when I finally realized this, and I was really in a deep, dark place, I just started going outside my comfort zone. In fact, I did it for 100 straight days, because I had I was going through PTSD from a divorce I had, and that was a tough one. And all of a sudden it just kind of hit me in the head, and I was just spiraling. And I was thinking about, would it be better to not be here? Mm. And then it started getting a little dangerous in terms of like, what would I tell my kids? What would I tell Izzy and Parker? And I'll never forget, I got on a call with a business coach of mine, and I told her not about the suicide part, but just everything else. And she, we term it's like, oh, we gotta, and Sandy's is doing the same thing over and over again, right? And expecting the same result or different results. And so I said, I know it's like 100 days out of a comfort zone. That's what I need to do. And so I wrote 300, 400 different ways to get out of my comfort zone. Every day I woke up in the morning and I was like, ooh, I'm feeling better. And finally, like day 95, it was like top of my list. It was tell someone about my mental health struggles, right? And so I delayed that until towards the end of the 100 days. And I called my cousin up. And my cousin I picked her because she's the matriarch of the family. I trust her, and she's kind of like a mother figure to me. But I felt like there would be no judgment. I was still nervous as heck. And I picked up the phone and I said, hey, can I talk to you about something? And I started talking to her about depression, suicide. I used to have horrific panic attacks, right? Couldn't focus. I mean, just a whole bit. And I just laid it all out there. I said, I understood why Carson killed himself. And she said, hey, thank you so much for sharing. And I want to tell you something. And she said, I have anxiety. I have panic attacks. So much that I, carry pills around me just in case. I have depression of everything that you have. Gosh, man, it was like, you talk about just bouncing off of that to the extreme of not telling anyone for like 40 something years. And then finally we're in this situation where it's like, oh my gosh, if she has it and if I have and she has it, it's like, I'm no longer lonely. And it was almost like, if anybody asks now, because I think I mentioned this last time, like a client would, private wealth, a client would say, hey, now I ask the client, what's your cause? Just because we utilize charities, for tax advantages. And they would say, oh, it's this cancer or even sometimes even mental health. And they would tell me why. And it was always a story behind that meant something to them, right? And they'd say, hey, what about you, Mark? And I say, oh, that's a lot of different things, because I was so scared. Talking about stigmatization again, I was so scared that they wouldn't, that they would figure me out. Look, I've donated thousands to American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, but I never told them because I was worried that they're like, well, are you depressed? And then that monkey brain goes off and says, well, if they think I'm depressed, and they're going to think that, well, maybe he's not going to be around to be my advisor, and they're going to move their money somewhere else. And so, yeah, I started telling clients when they'd ask me, what's the cause? I'll tell you my cause. And it's helped immensely, because what happens after that, Steve, is that the clients will be like, well, I haven't told you the whole story, right?
Yeah, right.
And that makes my world a whole lot better. Yeah. And it also attracts the right people. You want to surround yourself, right? You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Yeah. So
that leads to and I want to interrupt, because you're giving us a great lesson. Anybody that's dealing with suicide or cancer, people dying of cancer, it's all similar.
Yeah.
Support was the big thing for you.
Absolutely.
Talk more about that.
Support and community.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's no pill on this planet for mental health. There's no pill on this planet. There's no pill on this planet that can take the place of feeling supported and loved and a sense of community. Now here's the interesting thing is just since we last talked, I've been, looking at like misunderstood groups out there. And in my world, a misunderstood group is the exited founder. Okay, the exited founder, the entrepreneur who sold his business, his or her business, right? Founded this company. And then all of a sudden, they got all this money. So what happens when you have all this money, right? We're going right back to kind of the root cause of this is they feel lonely. Heck, I just talked to a founder a couple of weeks ago, 9-figure exit, right?
Wow.
And he's lost. He's lonely. Him and his wife are saying it's tough because, well, we don't have what drove us and the identity and the purpose here. And you also deal with the people that are close to you. You start to act a little differently. I can relate to that, right? It's almost like, they kind of don't know how to react to you. Now, you may have the true friends here and there, but those true friends start to be, few and far between.
Yeah.
And look at this. So I just talked to one of my really close friends. Same kind of thing, right? And now his was like, I don't know, $500 million, right? And he made this comment. He says, I can't really talk to anybody about this because no one understands. Like, how are you depressed with that much money in the bank, right? Like, you've made it. You achieved something humongous that we all wish for. And you're what? Right?
Yeah. It's backwards in your thinking, everybody's thinking, but until you walk in those shoes, like lottery winners. That's a perfect example. You go from 50,000 a year to 50 million, and what 80%, 70% are broke after 3 years or spent it all. And because mental health is a problem. And that's what your nonprofit works with, right? Is the
Right.
people with mental health. How do you do that?
So being around, I love working with entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I feel like I really get the entrepreneur, and it's no surprise that, I have mental health struggles. It's the entrepreneur mind. I don't think I've run into any entrepreneur that says, "Oh, I got none of that," right?
Yeah,
It's gonna come
that's
up,
true.
right? And so we all struggle with mental health struggles as entrepreneurs. And then you take what happens with mental health, and I've experienced myself with the PTSD from trauma. So trauma can mean a lot of different things. Trauma is selling your business. That's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
People don't get that. So you have trauma, whatever that is, a divorce, a parent passes away, some sort of trauma. And what happens is that trauma will magnify those mental health struggles. It magnifies the depression. So you were depressed at one point before you sold the company, right? And sad in a way where it's hard to get going in the morning.
Yeah.
But now you pair that with trauma, now we're talking about suicide worry right there.
Yeah.
And so this is called Ikigai Court. And Ikigai is the Japanese word for highest level of purpose. And for listeners that don't know exactly what Ikigai is, it's when you're doing 4 things. Okay, think of anything that you do throughout the day, and it checks the 4 boxes. 1, it's something that you love. 2, it's something that you're great at. 3, it's something that makes the world a better place. And 4, it provides your family with some sort of capital. Emotional, doesn't have to be financial, some sort of capital. Now, you check those 4 boxes, and that's where you're playing an Ikigai.
Yeah, and that's a servant right there. Because people
Right.
forget when they serve, you can receive abundance. It took me a long time. That was my mental health. Give, and never receive.
Yes.
I turn them into takers. And that's the Iki is perfect, because those 4 things give the characteristics of a servant leader, right?
That's absolutely correct. And again, I can lead you down the right road in terms of the medical side and the chemical imbalance. But in terms of the other side of that, right? In terms of what we can provide. So what this is it's gathering those exited founders. Okay, so we're gathering the exited founders. Everybody in the room understands everybody else. You can have the safety, you can have the vulnerability. We're going to, serve underdeveloped countries in terms of doing mission trips and really getting, now that's purpose, right? And then want to open up those hearts and then gather around and then have people around as guides, right? The practitioner, not the pill pushers, but the practitioners. There's one person I really want there is my coach, Jeff Spencer. He's coached Bono and Lance Armstrong. He's all about servant and purpose. And to have somebody in that room that's super authentic and super safe.
And super successful. Sorry to interrupt. Because that's the key is, I can do all that, right, Mark? But am I going to be successful?
That's right. Walk my talk.
Look at you. You're successful, and you could have not been successful, and it could have been very catastrophic.
That's right. That's right. The charity is not only helping the exited founder, but also also helping the communities that we're serving. But I feel like the entrepreneur who can't afford all the different modalities are the ones we want to support. So there's two parts of this. The entrepreneur, the startup entrepreneur. Now this is scary because we talk about entrepreneurs having mental health struggles and depression. And so what happens though when that you don't get your startup fails? Ooh, you talk about lack of purpose, lack of identity, you talk about trauma. That is scary. And it happens like more times than we want to think about. And then the other thing is to honor my cousin and to honor a friend's son who died from suicide at the age of 14, who was bullied. We want to really mitigate and one day end teen suicide. I think one of the root causes of that is bullying, and to really, we've talked about this, Steve, which is really get to that root cause. And there's a lot of things that are going on, and it's getting out of control because of technology and social media and how that's utilized to demean other people
everywhere. That's the problem. Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask this question because I think it'll help our audience. Is, what is the one thing you would do to support a loved one that's going through suicidal thoughts? What tips can you give?
That's a great question. First thing is that I'm in the process of doing that right now, actually.
You're living it.
And I think back to this kid, and what was done right up front is I created a safe environment for him, and I became vulnerable. I became vulnerable by just telling him, and not sugarcoating things, because a lot of people think, well, if I tell my friend that I thought of suicide before, then he or she's going to do it. Absolutely not. So the first goal is for them to open up to you. And by doing that, you become vulnerable and you show them that it's a safe place, and you tell them up front that nothing leaves this conversation back and forth. They think it's just like, oh, you don't want me to tell about your mental health struggles? No, we want to convey to them too that it's just me and you right here. Okay, so the other thing is just get them talking, right? Just get them talking, and then do a lot of listening. Don't try to give advice. Don't try to say, oh, you should take this pill. Just listen. Don't stop that. Just have them, and clarifying questions, have them just keep on talking. Here's the other thing, which is taught by my private medical doctor, Dr. Dan Carlin. If you think your friend, your loved one is suicidal, and don't assume, well, they said they never kill themselves, so they won't. No, this is the one thing I want you to do. And this is so important. I've done this several times. I want you to take out your phone. And I want you, if you're an iPhone user, or I guess you can do it on both, and take out your phone and you show them that you're moving them to a favorite. Okay, this is important. Why is that important? Because you tell them and you show them. Like I show this kid, look who's on my favorites. My 2 kids that have phones, my wife, my 2 parents, my twin brother who's my cousin, and now there's you. And what does this mean? When you call me, text me, this watch goes crazy on my wrist. I don't care if it's 1 o'clock. I don't care when it is. Now, we're making a pact here. We're making a pact here. And the pact is this. If you ever have that thought, that you're going to hurt yourself or do some harm to yourself, You can even say the word if you feel like you're going to commit suicide. Before you do that, before you hurt yourself, you got to give me a call. This is important. Do we have that pact? And look, the reaction I get every time I do that is amazing. Because that one act itself causes them to feel so supported. I always get tears. And typically I get, you don't know how much that means to me. And they will look me in the eye and say, you got it. You're my call. You're my call. And I know I can call you anytime. And then I kind of add a little caveat and just say, look, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm on the verge of suicide, or I'm thinking about like jumping. I don't care if you call me in the middle of the night to, I don't know, ask me what my favorite football team is. I don't care. You're one of my people. Feel free to use it anytime.
So you're being there when they've never had anybody be there for them, which is why they're in the place that they are. You're just filling that spot. Whether you're a father, mother, friend, cousin, family member, you're just feeling they're not lonely anymore. And you're saying suicide leads to this loneliness, which I can see, which is why I'm sure it happens, is a part of it. And there's much more to it. We won't answer those questions today. Mark, I'm really speechless, but this has been incredible because it's simple and it's hard at the same time.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable is not easy. But you do it so well. Your nonprofit does well. I don't care if you're a multi-100 million, 50 million billionaire, or you're barely surviving. We're all human.
Exactly.
And if you need help, reach out. Mark, thank you so much for being on. If I can ask a favor, I'd love to have you back. There's much more we can cover. Let's bring you back.
Steve. You bring
I love it. You're getting me tearing up here and emotional, and I appreciate that because I've not dealt with this. And I always say, when I hear my stories or have my guests on like you of stuff I haven't dealt with, at least I can live it through you. And if I run into it, I can handle it much better than, oh my God, somebody's trying to commit suicide and I don't know what to do. Now I have a step, and hopefully the audience, you have a step to take, and reach out to Mark if you have questions. I know he's open to that as well. And please listen to this a couple times. If you want to get more of these tips and this advice, it's hard the first time because you get emotional. I'm going to do that just to pull up these tips. And I want to thank Mark again. And I hope to see you all on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, Steve.